All good? Let's call this meeting to order. I need approval of the meeting minutes of our previous meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Bob?
Yep.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, bills, highway 005, $115,754.49. Capital improvement, 028, $17,386.75. Township motor fuel tax, 917, $2,318.32. And county bridge, 007, $70,203.82. I need a motion to pay the bills. Joe? Wally? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public comment? Okay.
First we got up is the approval of utility permits. First one I have is for ComEd. They submitted it for doing some pole maintenance up on County Highway 2, up by North 45th and North 46th Road. They want to get going on right away, so I gave them verbal approval back on April 28th. So I would recommend that for approval. Next one, 2114, then County Highway 18, in Dayton Township for night core gas. This is up here in County Highway 18, outside of MDL. And what it looks like they're doing is working on their relief fence. It's right adjacent to the county right away. Upgrading their relief fence, that's right there for MDL. I recommend that for approval. Next one, 2115. It's also in County Highway 18, Dayton Township. Again, for night core gas. It's the same thing. It's the one there from MBL. This is right in front of PetSmart. It's upgrading their relief fence, their gas main. They're using the county property right there. That's for approval. Next one is 2116, County Highway 2 in Northfield Township for ComEd. And this one involves upgrading existing power pole right there at Bonnie Lane, the entrance to Lake Holiday. And I recommend that for approval.
Okay, we need a motion for utility permits. Bob?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Joe? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Motion carries.
Yesterday, we had our lighting for 3 projects. First one was for our skip patch project throughout LaSalle County. We had one bidder on the project, Universal Asphalt and Excavating. They put their bid in at $227,446.99. Our estimate was at $252,070. So they're about 10% underneath the engineer's estimate. So I recommend that we award the project to Universal Asphalt.
Wally?
Yeah.
Joe?
Yeah.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And that's just county highways, right?
That's
Or is the
Township.
township also?
And Eagle Township as well. Next we had was Deer Park Township, 2106-839-00DR. Working on a pipe culvert for Deer Park Township. We had 4 bidders on it. First bidder was Illinois Excavating at $50,892. Next one is Phoenix Corpus Quad Cities for $88,965. Next one is Kalen Excavating and Concrete at $95,100. The last one was Toby's Construction Cartage for $90,991. Our estimate was at $63,485, which some of that excavating is about 20% or the estimate.
Yeah.
I recommend we award the contract to Illinois Valley Excavating.
You need a motion on that one?
I'll make that motion.
Bob? Elmer? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All the same sign. Motion carries.
This one's for Ottawa Township, 21-26-394-00 SM. A resurfacing project in Ottawa Township. We had two bidders. Advanced Asphalt had a bid of $194,421.75. Universal Asphalt Excavating had a bid of $203,281.62. Our estimate was at $227,082. Advance is roughly about 15% underneath the estimate. So I recommend awarding the contract to Advanced Asphalt.
Advance. Wally? Joe? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign, opposed. Motion carries.
Next I have is for our County 33 project right outside Waltham School. It was on April 23rd, IDOT letting. They had two bidders on it. Reber had a bid of $332,515. Construction had a bid of $333,448. Our estimate was at $406,490. We're looking for concurrence in awarding the project to Reber Construction for $332,515.
Will it get done this year?
It's supposed to be 2 months once they
So
start.
is Richard Road. Got an earful on that this morning already.
Need a motion? Joe? Elmer? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same sign, opposed. Motion carries.
Next, I'll give you a copy of the circular letter put out by IDOT, a local government component of the COVID relief supplement. These are federal funds that state of Illinois received. As far as COVID relief, they received a large sum of $385 million. They have passed some down to the local agencies and get through in front of the South County, and South County received $280,000 of these COVID relief funds. They're federal funds, so they have to be used on a project that will be eligible for federal funds. We currently have several projects lined up that have federal funds into them, and we'll probably wrap these federal funds to one of those existing projects already that we got coming up next couple of years. These have to be obligated by November 2024. And we're easily going to make that, probably take one of our projects we take to the letting next year. Either like the red, white, and blue bridge or either County Highway 15 out south, one of those two will wrap us into it. We'll just use less of our regular allotment funds for the project. If someone asks you where those funds are going, that's where it's going to end up on one of those projects. Okay. Next I had on there was, we received our fourth installment of rebuild only funds, so for our other program. And it actually has been deposited into the county MFT account. There's $713,000, which I didn't have in the budget this year. I only budgeted half of it. So next year budget next year, so. But I was gonna put full $1.4 million in the budget and not receive it, then it'd be a big hole in the budget, so. I'd rather receive the funds first and then budget for them, so. Next year, we're looking at kind of having 2 from Sheridan up to Samrock and put roughly 4 inches of mix on it. And then we'll use a good chunk of MSC funds along with the TARP funds that we got awarded for that project to go do that resurfacing next year. So sort of what we'll rebuild and all the funds will go on that project. Next on the agenda is the filling of vacancies at the highway department. We have our mechanic on board. James started
May 5th, or May 3rd.
May 3rd. May 3rd. We have an offer out for a CE1. He's currently employed by Graham out of Urbana. And he was requested that he wouldn't start here until July, which I didn't have a problem with him doing the late start. We were trying to get the CE1 on board, and he was very good. And we said, okay, no problem. He had a vacation planned for early July, so he didn't want to try changing jobs right before he went on vacation. But that's fine. It works fine. We'll get you on board when you're back from vacation. We got engineering technician 1 posted in the paper right now with resumes and applications due by May 28th. We already have 1 applicant already applied already. So anticipate a few more before May 28th, and we'll set up interviews in early June, and hopefully by mid to late June, we'll have that person on board too here at the highway department. Next I have is an update on the union negotiations for laborers contract. We went through this past week with our counteroffer back to the laborers union. Right now, I don't see any major roadblocks to getting that contract signed within the next couple months. We're not really pushing too hard on our side for anything. Their side, they're asking for a few things, but they're asking for to me a lot of small things that they all should be dropped off away because we just signed a contract 2 years ago. So why are we going through and looking for everything changes in less than 2 years? Should have been brought up when we were doing the contract 2 years ago. Next I have on there is about cemetery. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the cemetery. It's down outside of Kingley. It's supposedly like a Civil War cemetery, early 1800s, whatever. And the guy came to me because he was trying to figure out if we had any records of a road leading up to the cemetery.
Yeah, there's no road even to it, is there?
No. And through the records that we had here, we didn't find anything saying there was ever a road to that cemetery. So at that point, I told him the best thing he needs to do is he's got to start going through deeds over the time and see if there was ever access written into any deed to that cemetery. Right now, he has an agreement with the property owners that he can go back there, but it's not really a paved road or anything. It's just he's walking across the dirt field to get back to where the cemetery is at.
There's lots of cemeteries like that around Norway. They're out in the middle of the field. They used to have their own private ones and
Family plots and stuff.
yeah. And some people go and work on it. They don't even know anybody that's there or related to anybody there, but they go and weed eat and all, and,
Yeah.
which is wonderful. But how can you make those guys give them right away to build a road to it? That's taken away off their farms.
Right.
I just.
Well, this is going to be kind of very unique with this one because right now I believe the county owns that cemetery now.
Do they?
Yeah, because the property owner owned the cemetery and this guy got that property owner to give up the cemetery, but he didn't want it. So he had him deed the property to the county.
That might be what
So-
Christmas.
So we might be getting involved as far as the county somehow, as far as getting access to that cemetery. So right now, we're trying to do our legwork as far as trying to see if there's anything back in deeds or anything like that. And
Maybe there's some type of like utility access or something to it.
or if someone wrote something that you will have access to the cemetery. Or I assume probably not, because most times when the cemetery was built, the only way they got out there was basically by foot or by wagon. So I have a feeling they probably just went across the field to get out to where the cemetery was at. There was really no formal access. No one was thinking about formal access in the future. So, county may get drugged into that a little bit. It's not too much for the highway anymore for county property, but
Yeah. We're battling with our,
they're coming to us, they're thinking it was on the road at the time. We're not finding anything to say there was ever a road up there. At that time.
I think that by statute, we're responsible, the county. Anybody that gives up one or, abandons it or deserts it or whatever you want to say, that it's automatically reverts to the county.
By default, we end up with it.
Yeah.
we have
So
one
we will
behind,
have a lot to, that's for sure.
we have the one right behind the Norwegian Museum, and all the Norwegians are mowing it, taking care of it. They have all those grave markers erected that were underground, believe it or not, for years, because it used to be a cattle pasture and livestock. And they're still charging the museum, which is totally tax exempt, $40 a year real estate taxes. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I told them, don't pay it. Let them take care of it, because somebody's mowing that once a week, and I said, we don't want that job. Because trust me, there'll be 200 Norwegians calling each and incrementally to pester us to death, so we don't wanna, I
You gotta
think
be careful,
$40.
you wind up in a tax sale, it's.
Well, let them, what are they gonna build on it? I would be scared to death to dig, because most of them probably aren't even marked. It's 39 feet by 52 feet.
That's a one-year store, isn't
Yeah, and, oh my gosh, it's beautiful now. And, oh my God, they won't waive that. We've written a letter to, that has to go to our comptroller. And I have no response back. But they aren't paying.
I'll just bring that cemetery to your attention because he came to us asking about access and that. And I said, well, I didn't find anything, so you still probably keep asking questions.
Yeah.
Because he's really interested in the cemetery because he's got his ancestors, his ancestors buried out there. And
How far off the road is it, the cemetery?
I think about 1,000 feet.
Yeah, you can see it. You can see the stone.
You can see it from Oakley. You really can't see it from kind of Highway 29, but you can see it from Oakley.
From Oakley, you can see.
Yeah.
But right now, you should basically see this path that he's using to go back there. There's right ends up with an entrance right off Oakley. There's a path that runs right back to the.
Just a walk path or a.
Yeah, it's like, he's got an agreement with the farmer not to plant 4 rows.
Yeah.
That's what he uses for access to go
How
back.
many graves are back there?
I thought he said like over 100.
Oh, man, that's a lot larger than I thought.
And I know there was one time an article in the news strip about it because the college took the gravestones over. I remember that article reading it at one point. So, been going on for a while. Next item on the agenda is a special event permit for Grand Ridge Community Fest. They're looking at closing down County Highway 6 for August 21st and 22nd for their Community Fest. They're gonna have vendors and that out on the street for about a block long. They're gonna sign a detour around the town, utilizing the Township Road around the east side on the north side. Between East 18th and North 22nd as a detour of the traffic around that way. We don't have a problem with them doing it for a 2-day festival. So,
Is this the tractor parade too? Is this what that is?
Probably.
Probably.
I mean, I don't know that I'm sure about it.
Probably.
It's that same one they used to do,
Yeah,
Ridge Roundup or whatever they called it.
Yeah.
So it's the same.
all tied in together.
One thing I'm gonna require is that they have to give me a letter from the township commissioner saying he's okay with our traffic being detoured onto the township roads.
Township road.
Okay, Bernard. Kenny Bernard is the road commissioner.
Correct. Yep.
Jeff Graham Bank supervisor.
Have to get those permission to put the traffic over there. There's no action for you to take on it. It's all, this is the select my approval, but they can get aware of the views.
When they gave it up. Oh, he's gotta be 90 years old.
I thought I heard it was 88.
88, is that what he is?
Merv?
Merv, and
Yeah, that's about right. Next on the agenda, that special event permit for the Streeter YMCA 5K. We heard about this because the township commissioner asked if he was allowed to allow him to run down the road. And then we asked him what route are they using, and they're using part of our
County.
county highway there. And I said, well, when we replied back to them, tell them, by the way, they also gotta get a permit from the county to have this event, not just from the township. Part of the road is county highway. So I had that on the agenda to talk about, but I have not got their request yet. So I called the street on YMCA and remind them that they have to get a permit from the highway department to run their 5K.
which is Memorial Day weekend, so it'll be before the next meeting.
It doesn't take their approval on it,
Right.
it's the county engineer's approval. But just making them aware.
Yeah.
These detours and the events that are going on the county highway system. Next on the agenda is the replacement of the Alamo tractor. I'm sure you guys know what the Alamo tractor is. It's basically a boom axe mower tractor. We do a lot of boom axe, called an extended arm mower. There's an attachment that goes on a tractor that we can mow steep slopes and shrubbery with, and keep the tractor up on the roadway out of the ditch out the steep slope. That tractor is getting up in age and it's starting to become a repair magnet.
Mhm.
Right now it's tore apart in our shop again to replace the clutch on it again. And it's what, the second time in like 3 years?
Well, second time in probably 3 years, but third one overall, so
Third
third
one
one.
overall, for clutching the tractor. And it's had other problems with it, and it's a machine that gets beat up pretty good as far as, because it's the boom axe, as far as going out there, you're cutting stuff, you're banging it off of stuff, or you're hitting stumps, you're hitting different things with it.
Probably should have had a hydrostand in it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, or a left-hand reverse or something, so you're not on the clutch all the
So you
time.
got right in the clutch.
we've currently a used one for sale. That's owned by Dennis Holland, right there outside Oglesby. He rents it out. It's, I think the tractor's
2010.
10 years, yeah, 10 years old.
2010.
The mower's roughly only about 5 years old that's on it.
Yeah.
It's a different type of tractor. It's, I'll call it, I would say a backwards driving tractor, basically, to me, what it is.
It's one of the New Hollands, two ways. You can drive forward or back.
So you can sit there looking out the back window, it's, the boom axe is mounted right off the center of that hitch, where this one's mounted on the side, it's mounted right off that center hitch. So you can see everything you're operating in as you drive it forward. Instead of being just off to your right, they try and look through the side of the cabinet. Now you're actually looking at the big front window, you can see everything you're cutting. Right now, he's asking $97,000 for it.
95, yeah.
And we're gonna price out to Sourcewell what it would cost us to get a tractor and a boom axe. That's something for next year's budget, it's not for this year. Maybe something we'll put together for next year's budget. It's kind of give me a heads up that we are working towards that.
Martin Equipment is the local Alamo dealer, and he just called me, we've been sitting there, so I ignored it, but I'll call him back after the meeting and
This is some, we're not gonna budget, when we start talking about budget, that's when I have the numbers, to talk about whether or not we're gonna go for that used tractor, or we'll go for a new one.
Gives them, you know,
Do you have an
tractor
idea
and
what the new one run?
mower. I mean, I call it a mower, but
What's it?
Yeah.
everything all at once.
What's that, Joe?
Do you have an idea what a new one runs roughly? I mean, I bet.
The guy down in, what's that outfit down south, equipment outfit, he had one, but it was used as well, but it was a year old, and he went like 160 something, 150, 160, if I remember right.
Yeah, but that's not too sourceful.
No, right, that was just
That was just what
That
he
was
was
just what he
asking,
was.
right?
Yeah, well, at that point, we generally don't pay full retail price.
Exactly.
use that.
No, I understand that. I
purchasing
just
outfit.
was curious if you had a rough idea.
Yeah, I don't know. Now with metal and everything going up, it might be $200 next year. I don't know.
No, I,
Say, we get a pretty good deal going through that source outfit, so.
yeah, well, I couldn't see paying that kind of money for a 10-year-old tractor either, you know.
Right, you know, that's why.
That's the reason why I went, okay, sounds nice, but those all prices see what a new one costs before I say yes or no.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
And then
The
we
guy's not looking, he's not in no hurry to sell
No,
it either. He actually doesn't want
The one
Take-
this,
take payment this year, he doesn't want payment till next year.
Yeah.
He said, I'll give you a tractor this year, it's payment the next year, and I went,
yeah.
like Don said, if something happens to it, or we do something to it, well,
Then we're paying for it.
Right.
What do you
I'd
do?
like to option it out with, have the luxury of optioning it out the way you want it.
Right, yeah.
As far as like without a clutch or with a clutch or however, you know, if we're gonna price it, let's do it.
Well,
We know what goes bad on this tractor, so we know what we don't want
On the next one.
on the next one, is what I'm assuming you're,
100%.
you know.
They lease those out usually if they own them and they don't really wanna sell them, because I think we had to lease one time for the property committee for Steve.
Oh, yeah, no, they'll lease them. This guy will lease, Holland's will lease his them too.
Yeah, but last time we mowed it for you.
Yeah,
The last
When I-
two or three times.
Not last year, it's like.
Before the clutch went out.
Last year, the Alamo tractor wasn't running. The year before, when I first got hired on here, I know that fall, the Alamo tractor was up at Shibona cutting the weeds down.
anyway. He brought up the highway department and thanked you guys over and over.
We haven't
I am,
done
and I am too.
it
For what they got coming down the pike too.
yet. He's got a few projects for us we're gonna do for him, so.
There was just a reminder that the gym committee meeting starts at 8 AM. That's our annual bridge tour. So we'll start with our meeting here, then once we're done with our formal meetings, then we'll take a drive around the county. With that, we probably won't stop at a couple of projects we stopped at last year that are still be going through the next phase this year, which includes different townships, one bridge that's under engineering this year. Next year, we look for a replacement. Duck Creek up there and Walls Freedom, we stopped at last year, and engineering getting done that to get that pipe culvert removed and replaced with the box. And same thing with the one in Earl Township, we stopped at last year, and the engineering should be wrapped up this year, and we will be taking the letting next year. So I probably won't stop at those three. Then we got left in also, it's in Bridge 8 next year is a bunch of timber pile repair projects. And we got about 20 bridges to the timber pile repair, so we'll stop a couple of those and take a look at the timber pile and why we're replacing them. Project updates. The Sandy Ford has been underwater since they got the bridge down. Every time they probably get it pumped down, and the river comes back over the top, and there's flood back out again. They did get delivery of the sheet piling for the east side. They should start driving some of that sheeting on the east side and that going. But they're controlling work effort to still get the abutments in for the new bridge. Once they can get those two in, then get up and high and dry, then everything should be smooth sailing for that, but they just gotta get those abutments out of the water. Wolf Creek, everyone's favorite bridge, should be opening up very shortly. The asphalt's laid, ice shoulders on, guardrails off. Right now, the only thing I left is basically landscaping on it. And good to go for that on that project. Oakley Avenue, we're waiting on utilities to relocate. Frontier and MediaCom is attached to the bridge on the north side, and they're attached right there at the abutments. And that's right where we gotta look at to replace the end dams on that bridge deck and the back walls. So we gotta get them to temporarily relocate off those two ends. So we can do all that work on there, and I know Frontier's got their permitted, but I don't think MediaCom's got their permit yet to do that work yet. County 15 from I-80 up to 71. D was planning on laying surface this week, but now with it being raining every day right now, it's got pushed back. They're still hoping maybe later this week, maybe tomorrow or Friday, they'll get going on it, if not next week. This, all or those projects are Keep Seal. They were looking to get started this week. Of course, with the rain, nothing went forward with that. So as it dries up, they'll start crack filling and start going on the Keep Seal project. And imagine probably within about a month, we'll be also having the chip seal going on. And if you guys didn't know, the County Highway 9 over I-80 state project is open. So now you can drive up County Highway 9 again, which a lot of people that way are happy now that's actually being open. We'll get County Highway 33 closed down and get that project completed here for this summer. And then we still got the County 9 bridge to replace with a box that's just across from the old CL barn. And we're possibly looking at doing that late this fall yet. Any questions for me?
I was to ask if we got everything all done from the contractors on the building. Is there still stuff that they have to do yet?
Nothing for the contractors, that's all done.
So have we have released all the funds to them?
Yes, they did that at insurance trusts. And April,
Okay.
and April.
No, Rita was asking me and I said, the last I remember talking was, there was a few things that they were dragging their feet on, but
We still have our water pressure issue, but with that, it's kind of like our own doing because we own our own water tower. So at that point, if the water in that water tower is not up very high, well, of course, we have the water pressure. And they don't want to put it too high because they want, the way they treat the water, can only keep like 3 days of water supply in that tower to keep the chemicals right in that water supply. Well, currently, we're not using a lot of water because we can't use our big fire hoses on our wash bay because we don't have enough pressure back there. So as we're thinking about it, going, well, we turn on, get that auxiliary pump, put it onto that line to feed back to our wash bay for our fire hoses. At that point, we'll start using more water. So as our water use goes up, at that point, they'll put more water in the water tower. At that point, as they put more water in the water tower, the pressure will go up. Because right now, as I talked about last meeting, we got static pressure in our mechanical room at 36 PSI. Well, for the fire system to work properly, you need minimum 35. So we got a 1 PSI buffer there. If they raise the water tower by 10 feet, we'll gain 3 to 4 PSI. And we gain 3 or 4 PSI, it puts it up to around 40 PSI, which at that point you feel very comfortable with that number for 35 requirement needed for your system to operate properly. So as we start using more water, of course more water to be in the water tower, and that will kind of solve the problem.
did you guys ever find out how much more that was gonna be costing them?
We didn't get a cost on it, but we talked about the level of it,
Yeah.
I forgot what they said.
They said that the treatment of the water is what's been,
Especially if the water's stagnant where you're not using it, I understand where you don't want to treat so much. You get.
They want turnover in the tank.
You're right, that's what
They're
it is.
and they'll test it in the water, I guess, and all that.
Keep it accurate.
Just asked him because he's
Kind of
on
like,
that
you know,
committee.
I can learn something on it, to be honest with you.
Are the chemicals, are the chemicals dispensed automatically?
I'm not sure. I never got into the,
No, I think I'm gonna do it. I don't.
yeah, but I'm not sure if they automatically put it to the water gets pumped up. I'm not sure about that. How the treatment of the water process actually is.
So they have to change the volume of chemical based upon the height and the tower that.
Yes,
They want,
I understand it.
not the volume of chemical, there's volume of chemical going in, their treatment of water as the volume of water is going in. But they get too much water sitting in the tank, and since there's not enough turnover, the chemicals supposedly settle out in the water. It's not being agitated enough to keep it circulated. Then at that point, the chemical, when they start testing the water, actually where people are using the water, people sinks in that, they start getting fluctuations in the chemicals, where they don't have enough or they got too much. So at that point, they need to keep that turnover right to keep turbulent up there, so the water's constantly getting turned over. So at that point, it keeps the chemicals dispersed to the whole supply up there. So at that point, if their amount of water is getting turned over constantly, well, they can change the water level by that point depending on use. And also right now, the nursing home is what, 50% capacity or something like that. So they're really letting down on capacity. So at that point,
Right around 40, so.
so 40, so at that point, if they got up in capacity, of course, they'd use more water.
So what was the cost of that booster pump then?
It's $5,000. And right now with Comets and APSCO, they're eating the engineering costs. So the only thing we have to do is we have to go buy the pump and hire a contractor to install it. That's on.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I happened to be talking to one of the people from City Hall not too long ago, and I mentioned to him, I asked them about our sewer down here, and they said, yeah, we're hooked on to the city sewer in Ottawa, and we have been for a long time. But if we annexed into Ottawa, these properties, the cost would be reduced by 50%. Now, don't quote me on that, that's just, hearsay that we just had in a passing conversation. But it might be something to, between this property and the nursing home property might be worthwhile. I don't know what the disadvantages are to being annexed into the city, because we're not taxed, so we don't have to worry about that aspect of it.
All they have to worry about is zoning.
Well, that could be, I don't know. But they've never, up on Etna Road, we've been annexed there for years, and they've never,
Pushed anything.
Well, I'd say the ongoing operation, if it gets annexed, it should be whatever. the
Well,
other one-
yeah.
Yeah, so
Right,
that's why we try to put a new building or
Right.
something like that.
That would be the only
Yeah.
problem.
You have to go through that whole, their zoning board too.
But it was just, something going, and I know that there's been water problems. I worked years ago on the situation for the National Guard camp, and they wanted to have outside water source for that, and they do. It was big competition between Seneca and Marseilles wound up with it. And so they don't even bother with trying to maintain the water system at that location. And they have many more people there, not constantly, but intermittently than we have in either one of these facilities. And just throw that on the table for discussion if you're interested at all, but it's just something to look at in the long run, in my opinion. And the other thing I want to mention was, and I'm sure you've probably done it in regard to your special events permits. I know at one time they had to be reviewed as far as their insurance was concerned on many of those items. I don't know whether you're familiar with that or not, being new, but I just thought I'd bring it up for whatever information, because it would go through the insurance trust, he's kind of an inspector that we had that inspects all outside contracting, insurance policies and so forth. But
The certificate of insurance, yeah.
To indemnify the county in case something happens because we allowed them to use the road.
exactly, yeah. There's a liability there. Whenever we give permit, we're giving authorization and assuming liability at the same time,
Right.
So,
I'm sure the event sponsor probably has insurance for the event,
Right.
but we need them to indemnify the county, would be what I would say. You'd have to say, maybe that should be in your request back.
I'll get it before I put the request back.
Yeah, Melissa, I think, or man, or one of them would be able to give you more specifics on it.
All we have, same thing for any contractor working on our thing, we
Well, I-
require them to have a certificate of insurance.
Sure, yeah,
And it's the same requirements they require for that as they require for an event like that.
okay, all right. I wasn't sure. I just thought I'd mention it for what it's worth. Thanks.
Going back to that sewer system you were talking about, they annexed us in, would we be able to get them to splash with water?
Well, that's the other thought,
That was,
Yes,
that's what I was
right.
thinking.
because that was, you know, the idea that we
Yeah.
wouldn't have to fool with all this
Oh, you did? Okay.
water
Yes,
problem and everything
works
else.
In the water department.
The other thing I was wondering is if we're gonna put a pump in that add pressure to our system, and the problem is that they aren't circulating the water enough in the tank, you would think there would be a way they could put a pump to circulate the water in the tank to keep it agitated. Maybe it would be a more feasible thing to do that, then you can keep the level where you want it, agitate the water in there with a pump, and the system will be pretty much self-sufficient then. I don't know if it can be done that way.
I wouldn't think it's just merely a matter of agitation, it's a matter of having.
Well, to keep the chemicals at the proper mix,
Chemical-
they're claiming it isn't moving the water enough. If that is I'm assuming that is the problem, that maybe.
Depends on how it's introduced into the system.
Right, that's what I was
I
wondering.
would think it would be introduced into the system as being pumped, that way.
As it's being pumped in,
That way
yes, I would
you
assume too.
get,
Constant.
But the problem is that when it settles in the tank,
concentration in it. Well, I think more to the point, it probably should be, if I'm not mistaken, at the faucets over there or anywhere, it has to be 3 parts per million chlorine.
right, but I think the problem is that it settles out, the chlorine or whatever they're using, settles out as it sets in the tank, and I assume that's the complaint or the problem that they're concerned with. And because they aren't agitating the water by draining out and putting more in, so it's constantly exchanging. Well, what if you put a pump and recirculated it back into the tank? And that would keep it agitated to keep your concentrate equal. Just the fact of, it'd be like stirring.
Well, you know, if you're putting a booster pump in, if it's a manual situation, then basically you have to have coordination between the two facilities to make sure that when you're using more water here, they're making sure they're putting more chemical in.
Well,
That's why I'm surprised
they're
it's not
pumping more.
automatic.
Well, it's probably automatic, but it's
Probably automatic.
feed side. So it's
Just
going
change
on.
the concentration and.
So at that point, if
The
they
ice on the top.
use more water, well, at that point, they'll tell if the water level is dropping, at that point, they know they can pump more water up in the tower and treat more water by doing so.
I would assume that's.
And at that point,
use.
if you use that much, at that point, they don't know that's where. They're basically, they monitor and see how much levels in the tower, and they try keeping up what they consider a 3 days use. They know how much water is going out of the tower every day, so they know how much water to put them back in.
So if you had higher water usage, then basically what you might have is higher concentration of chemical.
Unless you have a higher
It's not being
concentration.
used up.
I think at that point, you just have a higher water volume.
I would assume as they
So
fill
they
it is what they when they treat it is as they fill it, I would assume.
Well, what it sounds like to me is retention time.
Well, as it sits in,
System
it's
itself.
treated as it goes in is what I'm assuming. And then from sitting in the tank and not being utilized, the chemical settles out. So now you've got water that's sitting in there, and you're adding more water at this treatment, but it didn't use all the water, so now it's just an accumulative thing from not being used. And my theory is, and it's, maybe I'm a dumb Pollock, but that if you circulate it, that it would keep it, the percentage constant, just by the fact of agitating the water. You know, that's what I was wondering, if you're gonna buy a pump, maybe that would not be a bad idea, I don't know, it may not be feasibly, to do it, engineer
The system I
wise.
put in the store is an aeration but it's for sulfur. We have sulfur water in Norway. And that pump kicks in and it aerates the water. And it's got a chimney that goes, it's a 3 or 4 inch pipe that goes.
To agitate the water to make it.
And they say the sulfur gas up there, of course, it's got a boot on it, so we don't get any livestock in there, but they say that sulfur gas coming up there will kill a bird if it's, perched there. But it just keeps aerating the water, and then we don't have to put, knock on wood or for lack of, we don't have to put any chemicals in there. I have a fountain pump in the store now, and we never could have that before, even with Culligan. Now you don't have to do it. But it does aerate, and it's a constant. It's got a jacuzzi pump in there that kicks on, you hear it, and all the air is getting, I think it adds air to the system is what I think it does, to dissipate the sulfur gas. Kind of the same principle as what you were talking for a pump.
I'm just,
Tom was talking about getting the city out of it and running a water line down here. Well, Tom Dutlinger is supposed to be giving us a price to say how much it would cost to get a water line down here. And that'd be one of the things possibly for some of the COVID funding that LaSalle can receive, maybe one of the projects to deal with that funding. But I understand with that one, it's kind of unique because basically you got to spend the money to hope to get the money back.
Yeah. It's scary.
So there's really no true guidelines of what eligible expense or not.
No, it's
Just like
like,
playing
there's
with
actually
game
going to be
cheats.
money that's deposited into our account. They just have to make sure it's an eligible expense. Otherwise, we have to pay the money back.
The only thing they said was,
There's more guidelines coming out. Some of it's infrastructure.
but they said one thing with water and sewer projects would be eligible.
Yeah, that one might be for. Was there any projected, cost on it from a few years back or anything?
No, not that could seem so. But I was Dutlinger supposed to be giving me an estimate, which I'll probably prompt them again to give me a number.
That'd be a good idea to add that as a possible project.
For sure.
Once I get the number, I'll give.
Beat your word out. Beat your word out.
Yeah. We had trouble with Ottawa water years ago when they built on Heather Road. We had to haul the water, truck it up there to mix the water for the brick. And finally, the county paid for the line, and then we were able to charge for hookups for different
Down the line.
up there. And,
that might be what they want here,
Oh, yeah, we're gonna pay for the line.
Yeah.
That's the thing, when we pay for the line, one thing we're gonna have is, if they want to hook up into it, the county gets funds back.
Reimbursed.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be if we're gonna.
Yeah, well, and if somebody buys some property west of here, that wants to hook on, there might be some way to, I'm sure the lawyers figured it out the first time. They
Yeah.
can figure it out again. Leave it open for a possible, hookup fee, yeah. Even though it wasn't our water, it was our pipe, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
that comes down to it.
Yeah.
Anything more for the cause? Need a motion to adjourn? Wally? Bob?
Sure, crappie fishing time.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
See if they can sign up.
Yes.
I think we're gonna head over to the whole city area club today. And the ferry gets called off work for tomorrow, this afternoon, I think we're gonna head up to the Florida for a weekend.
We're only adjourning if you bring some fish fry.
So, I hope I catch enough at the end.
Yeah.
I think what? Yeah, I'm a little worried, I don't know with the rain yesterday, if it pulled the water